My name is Talia Melanson. I'm 29 years old, and until last month, I thought I was engaged to the love of my life. We had the Pinterest boards the wedding venue picked, and matching coffee mugs that said Mr. and Mrs. Hale. I used to believe calm evenings over dinner were when love grew quietly. Two people sharing life's details, laughing over burnt garlic bread, dreaming aloud about the future. But that night, over a flickering candle and half-eaten salmon calm turned into something else. Brandon looked up from his plate casual as ever and said, "So when we merge our accounts after the wedding, we'll tackle my student loans together." I froze. "Your student loans?" He nodded, chewing slowly. "Yeah, about 150,000. It's not great, but that's what partnerships are, right? We share the burdens." My fork clinked against the plate. 150,000. I smiled, polite but numb. He said it so easily, like it was just another wedding expense, flowers, cake, or venue deposit. "Of course," I said softly. "A partnership is a partnership." He smiled, relieved. I excused myself to pour more wine so he wouldn't see my hands shaking. Inside my head, the numbers started marching like soldiers. Brandon's MBA at a state school, not Ivy League, should have been around 45, maybe 50,000 total. Even with rent and living costs, 70 at most. So where did the other 80 go? He noticed my silence. "Don't overthink it, babe. Everyone has loans these days." "I'm not overthinking," I lied. "I just didn't realize it was that much." He reached across the table, brushed my fingers with his. "It's all going to be fine once we're married. My debt becomes our debt." That word "our" felt heavy like a rope tightening around my throat. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling fan. Every whir of its blades sounded like another red flag I had ignored. There had been signs, small ones, the time he said his tuition payments got delayed. The fancy watch that appeared on his wrist right after he said he'd been cutting expenses, the vague answers whenever I asked for clarity. But love makes you complicit. You tell yourself trust means not asking questions. Now all I could think was, what if trust is exactly what he used to hide behind? I got up, opened my laptop, and searched average MBA tuition costs. My heart sank. My rough estimate was right. He had borrowed more than double what the degree required. I scrolled through our old photos. He, in his graduation gown, arms around me, smiling proudly. We did it, he had said. Except maybe we hadn't. Maybe I had been celebrating a fiction. The next morning, I made coffee and decided to try one more time, calm, rational, transparent. When he came over, I said, "Hey, since we'll be joining finances soon, maybe we could go over your loan documents together, just so I understand what we're working with." The air shifted. His smile faltered. "That's invasive. You should trust me." "I do. That's why I want to understand so I can help." "Help," he repeated, scoffing. "It's not that complicated, Talia. Multiple loans, multiple services. You'd get lost in the paperwork anyway." "Then show me," I said quietly. His jaw clenched. "You're making it sound like I'm hiding something." "I'm not saying that I lied again. I just need to know what we're taking on together." "You're being controlling." That word hit like a slap. Controlling. As if asking for honesty made me the villain. He pushed his chair back hard enough that it scraped the floor. "You need to relax, Talia. You overanalyze everything. This is why people say love and spreadsheets don't mix." I sat there heart pounding, realizing something cold and simple. He didn't want transparency. He wanted obedience disguised as trust. He stormed out, muttering about needing air. The door shut, leaving the faint rattle of his keys and the bitter smell of wine. Later that evening, I opened my journal. I hadn't written in months, but the words came easily. If love is supposed to make you feel safe, why do I feel like I'm standing at the edge of a financial cliff? The candle from dinner still sat on the counter, wax hardened, mid-drip. I stared at it, remembering the moment I'd said, "A partnership is a partnership." At the time, it sounded noble. Now it sounded like the first lie I told myself. The next day, Brandon texted, "Sorry I snapped. I just hate feeling interrogated. Let's not fight over money, okay? It ruins things." He added a heart emoji. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I looked at the spreadsheet I'd quietly started listing every inconsistency I could remember. It wasn't about revenge. It was about survival. Because something inside me whispered, if he's hiding this, what else is he capable of? And in that quiet, terrible moment, I knew this wasn't about numbers anymore. It was about trust. And trust, once broken, doesn't heal. It calcifies. That night, I stared out the window, city lights flickering against the glass. I thought I saw our reflection, the life we'd planned, shimmering perfect and possible. Then I whispered to the empty apartment. I didn't know it yet, but that dinner was the quiet death of our relationship. When people talk about heartbreak, they always describe it as noise shouting, breaking things, crying into a pillow. but mine started in silence. For 3 days after that dinner, I didn't bring up the loans again. Brandon was cheerful, affectionate, even overcompensating. He texted good morning, sent heart emojis, tagged me in memes about power couples. It was his usual tactic, drown the tension with charm. But underneath, I was watching, counting, listening. One night, as he showered in my apartment, I noticed an unopened envelope from federal student aid in his bag. My hand trembled, but I didn't open it. Not yet. I wasn't ready to become the kind of person who went through someone's mail. Instead, I took a photo of the return address. The next morning, I made an appointment. The woman I met at the financial consultancy was named Mrs. Harrow Gray Hair. Calm eyes, sharp voice. When I told her I was getting married and wanted to understand our financial future, she nodded and smiled. When I added that my fiancé had $150,000 in student loans, but refused to show the breakdown, her expression changed. You're smart to ask. I can refer you to someone who specializes in tracing and verifying loan usage. It's not unusual. Some people misrepresent things. Misrepresent, I repeated, letting the euphemism roll bitterly off my tongue. She slid me a card. Elliot Crane, forensic accountant. A week later, Elliot emailed me a draft report labeled Preliminary Findings, Confidential. I sat at my kitchen table, laptop, open, coffee untouched. Every number that appeared on the screen sliced another piece off my heart. Actual tuition and fees, $47,850. Reasonable living expenses, $21,600. Remaining funds, approximately $80,000, spent on luxury travel, jewelry, entertainment, and miscellaneous transfers. There were screenshots of transactions. Santorini Suites Resort, $9,800. Hermes, $4,500. Club Privé, $2,200. Dubai Luxury Tours, $12,000. I scrolled until my eyes burned. Each purchase was a betrayal wrapped in a receipt. That night I called him. My voice was steady, my heart was not. Hey, when's a good time to go through your loan papers? I found a professional who can help us make a payment plan. He sighed. Talia again with this, you're obsessing. It's not obsession, it's preparation. I told you I'll handle it. Why do you need a stranger involved? Because we're getting married, I said slowly, each word deliberate. And marriage is about facing reality, not hiding from it. He went quiet. Then, you really don't trust me, do you? I want to, I said, but you're not giving me a reason to. He hung up. For 2 days, he didn't answer my texts. When he finally showed up, he was carrying flowers, lilies, my favorite. He placed them on the counter, kissed my forehead, smiled like nothing was wrong. Can we stop fighting? Please, I just want things back to normal. Normal. A word that once meant comfort now felt like camouflage. I asked him where the loan paperwork was. He laughed it off. At my parents' house. They co-signed everything. I'll get them later. Okay, let's go together this weekend. He froze. They're out of town. Really? Your mom posted a photo from their kitchen this morning. The air thickened. He crossed his arms. You're stalking my mom now. No, I whispered. I'm just done being lied to. His eyes narrowed. You know what, Talia? You're paranoid. You twist everything into some grand betrayal. Maybe I don't want to marry someone who treats me like a criminal. That one hurt. Not because it was true, but because part of me feared it might be. He stormed out again. The door shook on its hinges. That night I sat on the floor, the lilies wilted beside me. I thought about deleting the report, pretending I never knew. After all, love isn't perfect. Everyone makes mistakes, right? But the numbers kept haunting me. $80,000. You can't accidentally spend that much on mistakes. I opened my laptop again and reread the final paragraph from Elliot's report. Given the non-educational nature of these expenditures, the co-signers of these loans may be legally exposed to repayment responsibility for funds not used for their intended purpose. Co-signers, his parents, Robert and Diane. They had once called me the daughter we never had. They deserved to know. The next morning, I emailed Elliot. I'll need printed copies. Highlight tuition, luxury expenses, and transfers separately. I'll handle the rest. He replied instantly, Be careful, Miss Melanson. People rarely react well when confronted with proof. I closed my laptop and looked at my reflection in the dark screen. I didn't look like a woman planning a wedding. I looked like someone preparing for war. Before bed, I texted Brandon one last time. I hope we can talk soon. There are things that need to be cleared before we move forward. No response. Then, an hour later, he posted a photo on social media, him and his friends at a rooftop bar. Champagne bottles in hand, captioned, Enjoying freedom while it lasts. The irony burned. I lay awake until 3 a.m., phone on my chest, mind replaying the past 3 years, every dinner, every shared dream, every moment that now felt scripted. I whispered to the empty room. He thinks I'm overreacting, but when the truth finally surfaces, it'll drown him first. Saturday morning. The air was heavy with the kind of silence that comes before a storm. I stood in front of the Hale residence, clutching a manila envelope, the report that could end everything. Robert and Diane Hale had always been kind to me. Robert with his warm laugh and steady handshake. Diane with her habit of touching my arm when she spoke as if to make sure I felt included. They'd called me family since the day Brandon proposed. I'd loved them for that, which made what I was about to do feel like betrayal. When Diane opened the door, her face lit up. Talia. What a surprise, honey. Come in, come in. Inside, the house smelled of cinnamon and polish homey safe, undeservedly peaceful. Robert looked up from his newspaper. Brandon's not here, sweetheart. He's at the gym. I know, I said softly. I actually came to talk to you both. Something in my tone must have alarmed them. Diane's smile faltered. Oh dear. Is everything all right? I placed the envelope on the coffee table. It's about the student loans. Robert frowned. His loans. What about them? I hesitated. You co-signed them, right? Yes, all of them. A fortune, but worth it. Education's the best investment. He chuckled, unaware of what was coming. I swallowed hard. Mr. and Mrs. Hale. I hired a financial expert to review the loan records. Brandon hasn't been honest with you, or with me. Diane blinked. What do you mean? Only about $48,000 went to actual tuition. The rest, almost $80,000, was spent on other things. I opened the report. Pages filled with color-coded highlights, green for tuition, yellow for travel, pink for designer purchases. Diane leaned in. This must be a mistake. I shook my head. He took 5 luxury trips. Greece, Dubai, Bali, Cabo, and the Maldives. Over $40,000. The rest went to jewelry, watches, and club expenses. Her hands trembled as she traced the words with her finger. No. Brandon said he was working part-time to cover those. He told us the loans were for books and living costs. Robert's jaw tightened. He used our signatures for this. Yes. The room went very still. Diane sat down slowly, the paper crinkling in her shaking hands. We mortgaged the house to help him pay these loans. We thought he was struggling. Her voice cracked on the last word. Robert rose, his face pale. We've been paying interest on a lie. I wanted to apologize to soften it somehow, but truth doesn't come with cushioning. He took the report, flipping through the pages like each one was another cut. What is Club Privé? $2 and $200. Is that a restaurant? I shook my head. It's a private bar in downtown. Exclusive. He set the papers down, breathing heavily. We gave him everything. Everything. Diane whispered. He told me once he couldn't afford groceries. I sent him $500 that week. Her voice broke. He thanked me for keeping him fed. And now you're saying he was drinking champagne in Dubai. Her tears came fast, soft, and stunned. Robert placed a hand on her shoulder, but he was trembling too. I need to hear it from him. He pulled out his phone and hit speaker. Brandon answered on the second ring, cheerful. Hey, Dad. What's up? Robert's tone was ice. Son, where did your student loans go? A pause, then laughter. What? Tuition, of course. Why? 48,000 of it, yes. The other 80, Brandon's voice changed. What? The trips, the watches, the clubs, the things you bought with money you told us was for school. Silence. Then Talia's feeding you lies. You shouldn't listen to her. She's obsessed with control. Diane leaned closer to the phone. We saw the receipts, Brandon. Mom, you don't understand. Those were professional events. Networking. Robert's knuckles whitened. Networking in Santorini. It wasn't like that. Then explain it, Robert barked. Explain why you mortgaged our home for an education you turned into a vacation. Brandon's voice cracked with anger. You're overreacting. It's just money. Robert's face darkened. Money we don't have. Your mother went back to work for this. I'll pay it back, when Robert asked coldly. Between your parties. For a moment, all I could hear was breathing heavy, ragged, furious. Finally, Robert spoke low and final. You've stolen from us. From Talia. From yourself. Dad, come on. The call ended with a sharp click. Diane pressed a trembling hand to her lips. He lied to us for years. Robert turned to me, eyes rimmed with tears he refused to let fall. Thank you for telling us. This must have been hard. I nodded, but guilt pressed on my chest like a weight. I never wanted to hurt you. He sighed. No, dear, you didn't. You just showed us what was already broken. He walked to the window, staring out at the garden he'd built himself. His voice was quiet but dangerous. I need to make some calls. As I stood to leave, Diane caught my hand. Her eyes were glassy, her voice trembling. You're a good woman, Talia. Don't let him make you doubt that. Outside, the sky was gray and brittle. I got into my car and sat there for a long time staring at the dashboard, unable to move. It should have felt like justice, the truth finally out. But all I felt was hollow. Inside that house, a family had just been torn apart by the same truth that had already ruined my engagement. And I was the one who pulled the thread. As I started the engine, my phone buzzed a text from Brandon. You think you've won, you just made a big mistake. I stared at the screen until the words blurred. Then I whispered to no one. So this is what the truth costs. You'd think that after truth detonates, there'd be silence, some clean emptiness, a place to breathe again. But when liars fall, they don't fall quietly. They grab whatever's closest on their way down. And that's exactly what Brandon did. It started with whispers. A few mutual friends unfollowed me on social media. Then the comments appeared, subtle, sharp. Money changes people. Poor Brandon, she ruined him over a misunderstanding. She's always been controlling. I scrolled in disbelief. He'd flipped the narrative before I even realized he was playing defense. Then came the explosion. Brandon posted a long confession online. A photo of him looking desolate, captioned, "It's hard when the person you love uses your past against you. I trusted her with my struggles, and she hired someone to spy on me. Financial abuse is real." Thousands of likes. Comments overflowing with sympathy. You deserve better, bro. Toxic women love controlling men with money. Glad you dodged that bullet. I read every word like they were stones being thrown. By Monday morning, even my company had seen it. My manager, Olivia, called me into her office. She closed the door gently. Talia, we need to talk. The Sena HR representative sat beside her, expression neutral. Olivia turned the laptop toward me. There it was, Brandon's post projected on a big screen tagged with my full name and workplace. We don't believe it, Olivia said quickly, but the board saw this, and we need to document your side. I swallowed hard. It's not true. I never abused him. I found out he defrauded his parents and lied about his debt. I can prove everything. Do you have proof? HR asked. Yes. I reached into my bag and handed them the thick folder, the forensic report screenshots of our texts, the threatening message he'd sent after I talked to his parents. You'll regret this. Olivia flipped through it all, eyes wide. My God. HR closed the folder gently. Ms. Melanson, keep this documented. If he contacts you again, inform us immediately. We'll issue a cease and desist notice on your behalf. That was the first time someone had said those words to me. Not pity, not shock, just protection. That night I received a text from Diane. Diane, we confronted him again. Me. How did it go? Diane, worse than expected. We hired our own accountant. Me. What did you find? Her typing dots blinked for a long time. Then, Diane, he opened 4 credit cards in our names. $39,000. And he pawned my mother's jewelry, said it was stolen. I covered my mouth, heart sinking. Me. Are you pressing charges, Diane? Robert says we have no choice. He'll be charged with fraud and identity theft. I stared at the screen, sickened. There was no winning here, only damage control. The next day, Brandon called. Not texted, called. I shouldn't have answered. But curiosity won. You think you're some kind of hero, he hissed. You turned my family against me. They're suing me. They're suing you because you stole from them, Brandon. You love this, don't you? Watching me fall apart. No, I said softly. I loved you. That's why this hurts. You ruined my life. You ruined your own life when you chose lies over love. He went silent. Then his voice dropped low and poisonous. If I go down, you go with me. I hung up and blocked his number. My hands were shaking so badly I had to sit down. The following week, he escalated. Fake emails to my boss. Anonymous complaints about professional misconduct. A new post online claiming I had psychologically tortured him during our engagement. But this time I was ready. I sent every message, every screenshot, every timestamp to HR. They filed a harassment claim through corporate legal. 2 days later, he received a cease and desist order. And just like that, the noise went quiet again. I thought it was over until Robert called. His voice was cold, tired. We met with the lawyer today. We're pressing charges for identity theft and fraud. We're also removing him from our will. I closed my eyes. I'm sorry it came to this. You don't apologize for honesty, Talia, he said. You saved us from losing everything. Then softer, he's not the boy we raised. And you deserve better than the man he became. When he hung up, I sat there staring at my reflection in the darkened window. I didn't cry. I just exhaled slowly as if releasing 3 years of tension in one breath. Outside, it started to rain, the kind that muffles the world into a dull hush. I opened my laptop and began deleting every photo of us one by one. Engagement shoot in the park. Delete. Birthday dinner. Delete. That night, he said forever. Delete. Each click felt like a small funeral. By midnight, only one folder remained proof. Screenshots, reports, emails, all the evidence of how love had decayed into documentation. I stared at the title and whispered, I don't need proof anymore, I need peace. And for the first time in months, I slept through the night. Morning sunlight poured through my curtains softer than it had been in months. For the first time in a long while, I woke up without dread pressing on my chest. But peace never stays untested. 3 days later, the doorbell rang. When I opened it, Brandon stood there, 3 suitcases at his feet, eyes red, a desperate smile on his face. I'm moving back in, he said. I blinked. What? I've been staying at a friend's couch. I can't do this alone anymore. You said you loved me, remember? We can fix this. I stepped aside, keeping the door half closed. No, Brandon. You don't live here. Legally, I have tenant rights. I've been here enough nights. You're not on the lease. You don't get mail here. Your license lists your parents' address. He scoffed. Fine. Then call the cops. I'll tell them you're emotionally unstable and trying to throw me out after an argument. I looked him straight in the eye. Do it. For a second, he froze. Then he laughed, a sharp, hollow sound that used to charm me. You think you've won, huh? I think I've learned, I said quietly. He left muttering curses, but 10 minutes later, 2 police officers knocked on my door. They checked my lease, his ID, asked a few calm questions. One of them turned to him. Sir, you don't reside here. You need to leave. Brandon's face twisted. This is ridiculous. You can leave peacefully, or we can escort you, the officer said evenly. He glared at me, eyes wet with fury, and hissed, You'll regret this. Then he grabbed his suitcases and stormed off. The door clicked shut. For the first time, the apartment felt like mine again. The quiet didn't last. 2 days later, a storm of notifications hit my phone. Brandon had posted again. This time, he accused me of emotional cruelty and defamation, claiming I'd destroyed his career and mental health. He even tagged my workplace again. But something was different this time. The comments weren't as kind. People were asking questions. Screenshots of the court filings and fraud charges had started circulating. Someone had leaked the documents, maybe his parents' lawyer, maybe karma. By noon, his post was deleted. By evening, his account was gone. The next morning, Robert called. Talia, the hearing's over. The court sided with us. My chest tightened. What does that mean? He's been charged with identity theft and fraud. He has to repay the $30,000 he stole plus damages. Probation and community service. I exhaled. That's something. It's justice, Robert said quietly. Not satisfaction. Just justice. His voice softened. Diane wanted me to tell you we still want you over for dinner whenever you're ready. I smiled through the lump in my throat. Thank you. But I think I need time. Take all you need, dear. You've been through hell and came out stronger. That evening, I took the engagement ring out of the drawer. It glimmered faintly under the light, the same ring I used to twist nervously during meetings, the one that once symbolized a future. I held it between my fingers for a long time before deciding. The next morning, I sold it. Half the money went to a financial literacy nonprofit for women. The other half I used for a solo trip, not to escape, but to breathe. In Lisbon, standing at the edge of the Atlantic, I watched the sun melt into the sea. No champagne, no luxury suite, no performative networking trip. Just silence and the realization that peace is louder than love when it's real. I pulled out my phone and typed a final message to myself, not a post, not a text, just a note. I used to think love meant merging everything, hearts, finances, futures. But sometimes love is what you unmerge from. Sometimes it's the courage to separate what's yours from someone else's chaos. Months passed. Brandon's story faded from headlines. He took a plea deal, avoided jail, and started working nights at a logistics company. Diane told me she hasn't heard from him since the verdict. She and Robert are in therapy, slowly rebuilding. As for me, I've rebuilt too quietly. I started seeing someone new a few months ago. His name's Grover, kind eyes, steady voice, the kind of man who asks before assuming. The first time we talked about finances, I laughed nervously and told him the whole story. He didn't flinch. He just said, "Transparency isn't control, Talia. It's respect." 2 days later, he handed me his credit report and loan summary without me asking. I smiled. That's normal. He grinned. I guess that's the point. I still have dinner with Robert and Diane sometimes. They call me family, and somehow it feels truer now than it ever did when I was engaged to their son. Diane started a small community group for parents who've been financially exploited by their children. She says pain shouldn't go to waste. Let it teach someone. Sometimes I help her draft the post for it. A few weeks ago, I received one last message from an unknown number. Talia, I've changed. Please forgive me. I didn't reply. Because forgiveness isn't for him. It's for me. Before I boarded my flight home from Lisbon, I stopped by a cafe overlooking the ocean. The same kind of place Brandon once called too cheap for networking. I smiled at the irony paid in cash and left a note on the receipt. He called it a partnership. I call it a lesson expensive but worth every dollar of my freedom.